this round. Paneling with me are Duty to Mean and Rob Salandanan. So let's do their introduction. Let's start with Duty to Mean, followed by Rob.
Hello everyone, my name is Minh and your panelists are in this round. Hope that you will have a fun debate. Here.
Hi, I'm Rob. I'll be your panel for the round. Good luck to all teams. And that's it from me.
Great. Thank you for that, guys. Assuming that I'm audible and assuming that all speakers are complete without any further business to tend to, before we start around, there are a few house rules that I want to set in place. Firstly, don't forget to indicate your speaker positions, your preferred gendered pronouns, and your preferred mode of taking POIs when you start your speeches. Secondly, encourage everyone to time yourselves to better track your remaining time. We will stop writing at 4 minutes for the constructives and 2 minutes for the reply speeches. So any substantives after that won't be written off. So I encourage you guys to also end your speeches as well. Thirdly, please be reminded of protected time when giving points of information. Since this competition does not follow the mandatory POI, you'll just have to go with the flow. But for the sake of engagement, I encourage everyone to raise one and take one. And lastly, please respect the protected attributes here in this debate. Be mindful of your tones and please respect the preferred pronouns and preferred mode of taking POI of your opponents. Calling this house into order, debating on the motion, this house prefers a world without religion. Let's call on the first speaker of the proposition. Here.
Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, you are both audible and visible.
Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Imagine a world with no holy wars, no blasphemy laws, no child raised to fear hellfire for asking questions, no parents rejecting their own children for marrying outside the faith. Now, imagine that same world still has morality, meaning, and community, just not rooted in scripture. Judge, that world is not a dystopia. It is a liberation. This house prefers a world without religion. Let me be absolutely clear about what that means. We are not saying we would violently erase belief. We are not saying religious people are bad. We are saying that if we could start over, if we could design a society from scratch with no inherited superstitions, we would choose a world from guided by reason, evidence, and universal human compassion, not by ancient texts or divine commands. Why? Because religion, for all its comfort, has caused catastrophic harm, and its benefits can be achieved through secular means. Firstly, history is written in religious blood. The Crusades, the Inquisition, the 30 Years of War, sectarian violence in Northern Ireland, the Middle East, India, and Nigeria. Even today, religious identity fuels terrorism, ethnic cleansing, and political violence. Yes, some wars have economic or territorial causes, but religion provides an unmatched tool to dehumanize the other. In a world without religion, conflicts would still exist over resources, borders, or power, but they would lose the unique ferocity that comes from divine sanction. Secondly, every major scientific advance has to fight religious dogma. Galileo was silenced. Darwin was denounced. But the harm is not just historical. Religion teaches that faith, belief without evidence, is a virtue. That framework is the enemy of science, which demands doubt, testing, and revision. A child raised to accept miracles and holy books uncritically is a child less equipped to think for themselves. A world without religion would be a world where every claim is open to question, whether authority is earned, authority is earned, not inherited. Thirdly, consider the guilt, shame, and the fear that religion inflicts. Children are taught that they are sinful by nature. Women are told their bodies are unclean or subordinate. LGBTQ plus people condemned as abominations. Yes, some religious communities are loving and inclusive, but the doctrine itself, the idea of eternal punishment, of divine judgment, of unquestionable hierarchy, is a tool of control. Panel. A world without religion is not a world without wonder, without kindness, without joy. It is a world where we finally take responsibility for our own morality and where we stop killing each other over whose imaginary friend is real. Vote for this motion. Choose reason. Choose peace. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech, first speaker of the proposition team, calling on the first speaker of the opposition. Here.
Okay, so my pronouns are he, him. POI preferences in the chat, please. And my speech will be starting in a verse countdown of 3, 2, 1. Mr. Chair and panel. To imagine a world without religion is not to imagine a world of universal peace and rationalism. It is to imagine a world stripped of its foundational moral frameworks. It is the primary source of community resilience and the very vocabulary of human hope. We stand on side opposition to proudly oppose the motion. This House prefers a world without religion. Before moving into our framework, we must address the fundamental flaws in the proposition's case through our immediate rebuttals. First, the primary assumption is simply not true. They assume that religion is the unique historical driver of global conflict and division. In reality, the bloodiest catastrophes of human history have been driven by political and economic ideologies like hyper-nationalism, colonial expansion, and etc. Second, their case suffers from a massive contradiction. They claim they want a world of tolerance and free thought, yet their preferred world requires the complete eradication of the core spiritual identity and cultural traditions over 80% of the global population. Third, we must issue a caution. The proposition lacks any logical mechanism to show how removing religion automatically results in a peaceful society. Human tribalism does not disappear when faith is removed. Individuals merely find substitutes, turning politics, sports, or nationalisms into battlegrounds. Moreover, even if governments believe there's an incentive to promote science, they fail to see that faith and reason routinely coexist. As religious institutions have historically founded the very universities and scientific centers we rely on today, even if you believe that religious institutions have committed historic harms, it is a profound logical error to blame the spiritual impulse itself for the political corruptions of human actors. So in the end, because proposition confuses corruption with the value of faith, their case falls apart. Let's now move into the framework of today's debate. We define religion as the shared systems of faith, spiritual beliefs, and moral practices that connect humanity to a purpose. This is an analysis motion looking at a preferred world, meaning our framework will evaluate which world maximizes well-being, community safety nets, and meaning for the vast majority of human beings. Our burden on the opposition is to prove that a world with religion provides structural, moral, and social benefits that the world cannot replicate. In terms of characterization, our key stakeholders are everyday individuals facing existential suffering, marginalized communities, and a global civil society. For these groups, religion is not an abstract debate. It is a lifeline. Now, let's move into our first substantive argument. We will talk about the irreplaceable role of religion as a global impact welfare system and a community stabilizer. The core premise of this argument is that religious institutions provide the most expansive grassroots safety nets in human history. Long before modern states provided welfare, and in many developing regions where governments remain entirely corrupt or bankrupt, it is the church, the mosque, the temple, and of those who feed the hungry, shelter the homeless, and fund local medical clinics. This creates an immediate structural gap in the proposition's world. If you eliminate religion, you eliminate the voluntary faith imperative that compels billions of individuals to practice charity as a sacred duty. And a secular NGO or a state department cannot replicate that organic, hyper-local distribution of networks of religious charity, which operates entirely on the ground to save lives daily. This attacks their world where they say we can quote unquote start again. Ultimately, we prefer a world that honors human spirituality, builds global communities of charity, and offers profound comfort to the vulnerable, rather than being a world that strips humanity of its deepest source of meanings. For all these reasons, I beg to oppose. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that speech, first speaker of the opposition team. Calling on the second speaker of the proposition. Here.
Hi, am I audible and visible?
You're both audible and visible.
Okay. I will start. My preferred pronouns are she, her, and you can say your POIs verbally. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Look around. People are driven by the thought of God, and they ignore everything else. They ignore the fact that they should have their own beliefs, and some things that in their religion are actually wrong. But guess what? They don't question it. They don't question it because they blindly believe it, or they are forced to blindly believe it because that's what their parents or teachers say as good, as what you should believe in. As if you don't believe in God, you'll burn in hell when you die. Let me start with my rebuttals. The other side said that the biggest wars were created by things other than religion. Yes, that could be true. It could be land, it could be other things. But that doesn't ignore the fact that there were wars about religion, and it is still ongoing throughout our society now. And that's why we want to have a safer, more peaceful community. They say religion brings hope and brings us meaning, but firstly, we can talk about the alternatives. Even if these alternatives do not match, we also add on to that. There's friendship, there's relationship, there's life, there's your own morals that could be built up if you don't blindly believe in one religion that has its own faults too. Because people believe in God, they don't question what is inside the Bible. They don't question what's inside the scriptures. They just believe it. And it ends up hurting the people beside them because they don't understand that this is wrong. Yes, the social impacts of religion could be good. You could probably find some other people who also believe in God and find a common topic with them and find more friends. And yes, maybe it could bring hope. But this diminishes your own presence. You are just born to be a prophet of God, and you don't question the beliefs, and you don't have your own beliefs. And why is this bad? Because if you have your own beliefs, you live as yourself. You don't hurt yourself just to follow religion. Yeah, sure.
Okay, so like you said, because people are born as prophets of God, how would you guarantee that their life would be better considering most of the Bible has moral values that actually help people in today's society?
Even if we don't believe in God, we can still influence people to be good with like moral values and stuff that we don't have to 100% follow Christianity or other religions for, because it ends up sacrificing other things, which I will add on to my first speaker about. So but is it worth it that people are pressured, people are abused into believing in God? Is it worth it that when you first open your eyes as a baby, then your entire existence has to be to God because your parents force you to? And this is actually very common in many religions. And we'll talk about the impacts on our community. As my first speaker said, women, LGBTQ people, uh, and a lot of other societies are impacted by religion. So, firstly, Christianity or other religions uh, don't like, they are actually quite homophobic because they think that homosexuality is a sin against God, and then they shame people and send them, and that's why some parents send them to schools that force them to be straight and follow the rules of God. And also, women are diminished and they are abused for not wearing the religious clothing. They are beaten up, sent to the hospital, and even when they say, "Oh, I don't want to believe in this religion, and then they get beaten up. And something more serious is that in some religions, talking about getting sexually assaulted is taboo, and which is why victims are too scared to speak up because they think, oh, I'm just exaggerating because my religion tells me that this is not a thing I should be talking about. This is not really a big thing. I should just follow my religion because that's what I was born to do the moment I was born. They are living for the sake of God. They are not living for themselves. They are manipulated into thinking that what they believe in other than God is wrong, and they are forced to be pushed into a corner. Women forced to listen to their husbands, forced to marry, forced to keep silent, and forced to not show their true color. Do it? Okay. I'll conclude my speech. We should be living for ourselves and not for this cruel injustice.
Thank you for that speech, second speaker of the proposition team. Calling on the second speaker of the opposition. Here.
Okay, that will be me. So give me 5 seconds to send on the timer, please. And anyways, thank you for this debate. Thank you, judges, debaters, and also my team for being so dedicated, and also everybody in this debate. So, anyways, I would like to start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. Mr. Chair, ladies and gentlemen, as second opposition side, I'll do 3 things. First, I'll rebut the proposition case. Second, I'll show why religion provides communities that cannot easily be replaced. Third, I'll explain why religion helps ordinary people survive life's hardest moment, hardship, right? Then I'll compare the words and explain why opposition wins. First, let's just deal with proposition. The entire case can be reduced to 3 key things. They say first, religion causes violence. Second, religion causes discriminations. And third, religion creates fear and pressure because of those controversial laws in religion. Forced to marry, parents force children to be like religious, for example, etc., right? But there's one problem. They never prove that these harm disappears when religion disappears in the first place, right? They never prove how. And violence, they give us like the crusades, terrorism, and even religious wars, right? But people have fought over race, land, ideology, resources, and even politics, right? Human conflict existed even before religion and exists outside the religion part, right? Removing religion removes one banner, not the reason people fight in the first place. So they do not solve about conflict in the first place, right? Second, on discrimination, right? They point to LGBTQ individuals and harmful religious rules, right? Okay, we agree that some religious groups have caused harm, but propositions themselves admitted that those leaders, for example, Poles, have moved towards greater acceptance and dialogue into the status quo, right? If religion can change, then the problem is not a religion itself, but the specific interpretations of it in the first place. Am I right, Mr. Chair? Most importantly, proposition admits people will replace religions with like friendships, right? Communities and other belief system, right? This destroys their own case. If people still seek identity, belonging, and meaning, which is very important in this debate, then the divisions they blame on religion can simply reappear elsewhere, in like communities and even belief system, right? They've removed the label not about the human behavior in the first place, right? Now, to my extensions. Religion creates communities that cannot easily be replaced. As my first speaker said, a friendship is not the same as a community, right? A hobby group is not the same as a community, right? A religious communities here bring together people of different ages, incomes, and even backgrounds under the shared commitment to care for one another, right? For example, religious communities like Christians or even Buddhism, right? People celebrate births together. They support each other to innocence. This is people's daily lives, right? They help families during hardship. They visit the elderly and comfort the grieving people, right? This what makes these communities strong is about duty. People help not because it is convenient, but they believe they should, as Christian said, for example, right? In proposition worlds, these communities do not automatically reappear, right? People become more isolated and more dependent on themselves during difficult times, right? Which is linked to my new arguments. Religions help people deal with suffering, right? Every person will eventually face loss, failure, uncertainty, or death. These are reality signs decline that science and rationalism alone cannot solve for the time. Religion gives people a way to understand suffering and continue moving forward, right? It provides comfort when answers do not exist. For example, wars, right? It provides purpose when life becomes difficult. Proposition calls this imaginary or false hope, but they never explain why taking away that source of strength makes people's lives
better in the first place. Am I right? Now, let us compare the worlds. First, proposition does not solve the root causes of violence, discrimination, and division, right? Human beings will simplify new identities and new groups, right? Second, they remove strong communities that support millions of people every day. Third, they also take away the important source of resilience during life's hardest moments, right? Therefore, opposition wins because their work fails to solve the harms they identify. They destroy social bonds that guide people every day, and they leave people with fewer tools to cope with suffering, especially in war and during hardship times. For all these reasons, I'm proud to stand with opposition side, and I invite my opposition whip to show that this house should reject the motion. I think, and rest my case.
Thank you for that speech, second speaker of the opposition team, calling on the third speaker, of the proposition. Here.
Okay, wait for a second. I'll start on my speech in 3, 2, 1. Religion is the start of many wars, the reason to inequality, the cause of harm, and the lead to irrationality. Religion has caused many harm and chaos in our world, and it outweighs those fake comfort and hope in those things. So today I'll bring in two major clashes and show you why we win all of them and we win this debate. So first clash is the likelihood analysis on whether chaos will happen or people will think that a meaning is true. So what is chaos? Chaos is wars, suicide, people killing each other, and destruction. And religion separates people. I'm Christianity, you are Buddhism, and we get separated and they don't link people together. And many religions, they follow absolute truth and they want to show that their religion is the best and the others are fake. So they spread their religion and their incentive is to influence more people to follow their religion. When everyone is trying to do that, wars happen. Large-scale mass wars happen, which is not what we want. So they believe that by spreading religion, they will impress God. So that's why they keep spreading religion because they want to impress God. And there'll be no compromisation and no surrender, and it will be a brutal, bloody war since the God tells them, don't surrender, believe in yourself, you can do it, conquer the lands. So, for example, the Crusades and the Islam Caliphates and where Christian spread in the Age of Discovery, those are all real-life proof that religion will influence people to spread and have wars happening. Yes.
Even if you call false hope about religion, why is taking away a source of comfort during grief and suffering necessarily better for people's life?
Because comfort only happens when there's no wars. Does meaning or comfort even make sense when bloody wars happen? The survival comes first, then comes the comfort. So ours outweighs you. And comfort can also happen in our world. Okay, continuing. In Confucianism, women's feet has to be tied on a rope called binding foot, and this is an example for gender inequality. In our world, it's less likely that war will happen because they will be afraid of death. But in your world, they are more afraid of God than they are afraid of death. Therefore, that's why wars will happen in our world. In our world, human is naturally afraid of death. That's why they would try to avoid war, which is different from your world. And our world is more rational. Death and suicide will happen, but not as often as large scale. So friends, families, relationships, experience, all those things can also lead to meaning and happiness in a society. Religion is not the only way you can find meaning in life. That's why it's less likely that life will have no meaning in our world, right? There's many atheists in this current status quo. And are you saying that their life is not comfortable, no meaning, they are bored every day? I don't think that's true, right? And does it even matter when wars happen every day? No, it doesn't. That's why we win the first clash. Moving on to second clash, which is about the safety network as they claimed. So they claim that there will be a safety network that will keep people together in religion. But this is not true because the safety network only provides comfort and emotional hope, but it does not provide biological safety net. However, in our world, we have the government. It's the biggest safety net, and it provides not only comfort, but also biological safety. So that's why government is better than the religion. However, in status quo, religious people have been ignoring the government because they choose to pursue the religious safety work, which is not good because they're not being biologically biologically protected. That's why our good is better. We provide them autonomy, and they could freedom, and they could choose what they think is important, and it will lead to a more happy life. All those hobbies and families, because community of religion is closed, they don't accept and they're not open. Religious community does not accept people from other religions, and it's so closed and closely packed and tight. And that's why we win the second clash. We win both clashes. We win this debate clearly. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for that speech, sir, the speaker of the proposition team, calling on the third speaker of the opposition. Here.
Sure, that would be me. So I'd like to start. I preference verbally pronouns he, him, and I'd like to start my speech in risk count of 3, 2, and 1. Mr. Chair, throughout this debate, government tried to frame religion as a source of conflict, as a source of division, and a source of oppression. They told you that without religion, the world would become more peaceful, more rational, and more united. But opposition showed you something far more important, Mr. Chair. Religion is not just a belief system. It is a source of identity, a source of community, and a source of meaning for billions and billions of people today. Removing religion does not remove conflict or suffering, Mr. Chair. It simply removes one of humanity's oldest support systems, and that is why we proudly oppose this motion. As opposition whip, my role is to show why government loses this debate on 3 key clashes: meaning versus emptiness, community versus isolation, and conflict versus human nature. Before moving into those clashes, let me first respond to government's biggest claim, that religion creates conflict and division. 3 reasons why this fails, Mr. Chair. First, conflict is not unique to religion. Humans have fought over politics, over land, over race, over ideology and power throughout history. Even in a world without religion, these divisions will still exist. Government wrongly assumes that religion is the cause of conflict, when in reality, conflict comes from human greed. Conflict comes from human fear and human competition. Removing religion does not remove human nature, Mr. Chair. Second, religion often prevents conflict instead of causing it. Religious teachings frequently encourage forgiveness. Religious teachings frequently encourage charity, compassion, and moral responsibility. Religious communities often become places where people actually learn empathy and support each other through hardship. Government only focuses on negative examples while ignoring the millions and millions of positive ones. Third, Mr. Chair, even if religion creates some harm, removing it creates even greater loss. Humans lose meaning. Humans lose tradition. They lose belonging and moral guidance. Government never proves why removing all of that creates a better world overall, Mr. Chair. Now onto the first clash: meaning versus emptiness. Religion gives many people purpose. It gives people understanding. It helps people understand suffering, grief, and uncertainty. It offers answers during moments where logic alone often feels emotionally incomplete. During loss, during disaster or hardship, religion gives comfort and hope. Government assumes a society can replace this with purely secular institutions, but opposition showed why that is unrealistic, Mr. Chair. Emotional meaning cannot always be replaced by policy or logic. Many people rely on religion to feel grounded and connected to something larger than themselves. Without religion, many lose that emotional foundation. Now onto the second clash. Community versus isolation, Mr. Chair. Religion is not only private belief, it builds communities. Places of worship connect families, connect neighbors, and connect generations. Religious traditions bring people together through celebrations, charity, and shared rituals. These spaces often become support systems during crisis. Government here, they said that society can create community elsewhere, but they underestimate how deeply religion connects people. Protected time. But they underestimate how deeply religion connects people across generations and cultures. Removing religion removes these long-standing communities and replaces them with uncertainty. Opposition protects those bonds. Now onto the final class, Mr. Chair. Conflict versus human nature. Government's entire case depends on believing that religion is the main reason people fight. Opposition proves that conflict exists with or without religion. Humans disagree over power and identity regardless. In fact, Mr. Sher, a world without religion may simply replace religious division with political extremism or ideological conflict. So, government does not solve conflict. They only change its form while removing religion's belief. So when we weigh this debate, Mr. Chair, opposition clearly wins. On meaning, religion provides emotional purpose. On community, it builds belonging and support. On conflict, government fails to prove religion is the root cause. So for all these reasons, we are proud to oppose Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. Third speaker of the opposition, calling on the opposition reply.
Okay, so op reply speech will be starting in 3, 2, 1. Mr. Chair, at the end of this profound debate, you are left with two completely different understandings of human nature. The proposition has spent this round completely operating under the assumption that religion is the sole source of human division, while the opposition has shown you that human behavior exists independently of the labels we place upon it. Their entire case can be reduced to three claims: that religion causes violence, that religion causes discrimination, and that religion creates fear or pressure. The first major area of clash centered on global violence and conflict. The proposition pointed to historious religious wars and modern terrorism to justify their preferred world. However, as we have successfully demonstrated, they have completely failed to prove that these harms disappear when religion disappears. Human beings have fought over race, land, resources, and political power and ideologies throughout history. Conflict existed long before religion and persists entirely outside of it. By removing religion, the proposition merely removes one banner under which people mobilize, completely failing to address the root causes of human aggression and tribalism. Second, the second major clash came down to discrimination and social evolution. The proposition highlighted severe harms faced by marginalized groups such as the LGBTQ community under traditional structures. We absolutely agree that certain religious groups have caused historic harm, but the proposition themselves conceded that prominent leaders are actively moving toward greater acceptance, inclusivity, and open dialogue. We won this clash by proving that if religious frameworks can fundamentally adapt and reform within, then the structural problem is not the concept of faith itself, but specific interceptions of it that are already changing in the status quo. Ultimately, the proposition merely removed the label, not underlying the human behavior. They offer a sterile world that strips billions of people of an essential source of charity and comfort, while without solving a single systemic harm. For all these reasons, I have never been prouder to oppose. Okay. Am I visible and audible? Am I visible and audible?
Hello, yes. You could wait for a bit since the chair just dropped. We'll just wait back for him. In the meantime, you could still prepare.
Hey, does that mean I have to redo my speech again if the chair's gone?
No, no, no. You don't have to redo it. We'll just wait for the chair to come back. So the chair dropped halfway through the speech. Okay. Um, I think okay, sure. We'll wait for the chair for the next 5 minutes to come back.
And then I have to redo my speech, right?
You will have to will they have to redo half of the reply speech, or will they have to redo the entire speech? Okay, you could redo halfway through your speech, op reply, when the chair comes back.
Hello, am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, great. I apologize for that, guys. There was a sudden blackout here in my place. We'll proceed with the reply. Just let me arrange my notes.
You disconnected when I was talking about like the second clash, right? To
Yes,
nation?
yes.
Okay.
Around at least 1 minute before 1 minute.
For 1 minute.
Okay. Wait. Okay, yeah, you may start now.
Okay, my reply speech starting in 3, 2, 1. So, the entire case of opposition can be reduced to three claims: that religion causes violence, and that religion causes discrimination, that religion creates fear and pressure. So, by removing religion, the proposition merely removes one banner under which people mobilize, completely failing to address the root causes of human aggression and tribalism. The second major clash came down to discrimination and social evolution. The proposition highlighted the severe harms faced by marginalized groups, such as the LGBTQ community, under traditional structures. We absolutely agree that certain religious groups have caused historic harm, but the proposition themselves conceded that prominent leaders are actively moving towards acceptance, inclusivity, and open dialogue. We want this clash by proving that if religious frameworks can fundamentally adapt and reform from within, then the structural problem is not a concept of faith itself, but public historical interpretations of it that are already changing in the status quo. So in the end, the proposition has merely removed the label, not underlying human behavior. The opposition preserves a vital mechanism of hope, resilience, and community. With all of that, I've never been prouder to oppose.
Thank you for that third speaker of the reply speaker of the opposition, calling on the reply of the proposition. Here.
Making sure I'm visible and audible. Am I visible and audible?
You are both audible and visible.
Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, 1. Panel. The opposition raised several arguments. Let me address them directly. Firstly, they argued that religion offers answers and comfort during hardships. We do not deny that religion provides comfort. A prayer in a hospital room, a belief in an afterlife after losing a loved one. These are real psychological benefits, but comfort is not the same as truth. A lie that makes you feel better is still a lie. Moreover, religion also causes immense suffering during hardships. Telling a grieving mother that her child died because it was God's plan can be cruel, not comforting. Telling a cancer patient to pray instead of seeking treatment causes real harm. Secondly, removing religion causes harm. This is a claim without evidence. Look at the most secular societies on earth. Sweden, Denmark, Japan, New Zealand, Canada. They have among the highest standards of living, lowest crime rates, strongest social safety nets, and greatest personal freedoms. Where's the harm? If removing religion caused harm, these countries should be dystopias. They also said that religion is not the root cause of conflict. Behind religious wars are politics, economics, land, or power. Religion is just a label, not the root. But this is false, even if other factors exist. Religion provides the unique motivation that makes conflicts intractable. You can compromise on borders or taxes, but you cannot compromise when both sides believe God commands them to kill infidels. Thirdly, religion does not cause conflict. This is historically illiterate. The Crusades, the Inquisition, all of them. The opposition will say those were political conflicts, but when people kill because they believe God commands it, religion is a cause. Panel, the opposition asks you to believe that religion is purely comforting. Vote for the motion. Thank you.
Thank you for that proposition reply. That concludes this round. Congratulations on finishing the pre-semis for the JSWDC. May I